Hello everybody, it's Ron Milligan from Remax Select coming to you from our offices here in Portland's Pearl District. And I am specifically coming to you from our new Turtle Corner. Put up some new artwork from Deborah Alastra, and so I have my new two turtle buddies helping me out today. So it is time for me to give you the latest real estate statistics for the Portland metro area, and that's north and south of the border, including Southwest Washington. And we have some interesting numbers to look at today. So as usual, we'll look at the supply and the demand numbers, and then also how everything that sold recently on the market did. And then I have some thoughts on what we've been seeing, just kind of boots on the ground level here. So we'll finish up with that. So first of all, the supply numbers. We actually lost supply. So the number of active listings went from 1840 down to 1796, which was a 2.4% decrease. Not a lot, but second week in a row where we ended up with fewer listings than we had the week before at that same time. So a little bit interesting. I'm wondering what's going on here. There was some talk about, maybe low interest rates would lock up our supply as interest rates rise and prices rise. So low interest rates, what I'm talking about is folks who locked in a rate for their current home. Maybe they refinanced into their current rate at 2.75 or 3.25%, and it's just too painful for them to let go of this property and turn around and buy something else at a higher interest rate and a higher purchase price. So maybe there's a little bit of that lockup going on, and maybe there's a little bit of kind of knee-jerk reaction, kind of like the markets are doing with interest rates. The Fed raised rates 1/4 point, and they're well over 1.5 points higher than they were several months ago, like 3-4 months ago. So the market's kind of reacting in a knee-jerk fashion to the anticipation of more rates hikes coming down the line when the Fed meets the next 6 or 7 times. So for a little bit of context, where we were last year at this time, the number of active listings was 2135. So we have 15.8% fewer active listings this year than we did last year, when we thought the inventory was incredibly tight and when demand was high. So it's even a worse situation this year versus last year as far as the inventory is going. And I'm not sure that we're going to get much relief in sight. Last year at this time, the number of active listings had turned a corner. We had been reducing in the number of active listings as we went through to about the third week in March. And then at that point, in the third week of March or so, the number of active listings last year started increasing by about 100 listings per week, like clockwork, every single week. So a little bit strange that we don't have any advancement or any increase in the number of active listings that we have. Number of pending deals is at 5111. So that's kind of our measure of demand versus the previous week we're at 5096. Last year at this time that number was 5835. So we had significantly more deals under contract last year than we did this year, but that gap is tightening up as we go. The number of new pending deals came in pretty high again. 892 deals went under contract. You can see last week that number was 929, 881, 847 in the weeks before that. So we're sort of in that same range where we were, slightly less than we had last week, but still within that kind of that plus or minus range of where we've been for the last few weeks. So demand is still remaining high. For the number of deals that did close, we are at 643 versus last year at this time when I took that measure, it was 581. So we're still now for about the 4th week in a row outpacing last year in the number of sales that we are closing. Keep in mind that those are deals that we put under contract likely anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks ago. So for those properties that did close, how did they do on the market? Most of them on average, the average days on market was 17 days. That's down slightly from last week. Last year that was 24. The median number of days on market was 5. That's very typical for what we see and last year was 5 median days on market as well. Average sale price came in at $615,532 versus the pretty much the same week last year. That was $537,086. So we're looking at a 14.6% increase in the average sale price. Again, I keep saying this every week, but it is a small sample. We'll see what those numbers look like when we get our March numbers, and we're comparing the first 3 months of 2021 to the first 3 months of 2022, which is typically how RMLS calculates those numbers. Just as a refresher, the end of the year, we ended 2021 at 15.8% appreciation. January is around 14, February is around 10. We're seeing numbers slightly, more a bit higher than 10. So I suspect that 10% is going to get dragged up when we're comparing our March numbers. Maybe that'll be around 12%. And we should get those not next week, but the week after. It's usually about 10 days after the first of the month that RMLS releases those monthly statistics. The average sale price as a percentage of the asking price went over 105%. It's 105.12. And then the median clocked in at 104.6. So those are the numbers for what closed. Keep in mind that these deals that we're closing right now were deals that went under contract, probably around 4% interest rate. Right now we have interest rates that are in advance of, well, at last check it was around 4.75%, although it feels like maybe those are starting to recede a little bit. I checked Wells Fargo's numbers, and they had a number that was down around 4.35%. And then keep in mind, Wells Fargo is still trying to buy up the jumbo market. The jumbo rates that they have are advertising at Wells Fargo are about a half a point lower than that. So what I think is interesting is, what we're seeing right now, properties are still going quickly. We're running into a huge amount of interest. So, on a couple of listings that we had in our office last week that hit the market, Thursday, Friday, went through the weekend, and then went under contract after the weekend. Typically we were seeing, almost near record numbers of folks coming through the open houses, like 35, 25 parties in a 2-hour time frame, and that's a lot of people. Probably about, I would say, maybe a slightly lower number of agent showings than we typically see, but based on the activity, at the end of the weekend and the offer submission deadline that we had set, we were expecting to see a lot more offers. We didn't see quite as many offers, and the offers that we did get still went way over asking price, but we're seeing fewer offers than we had expected. And that may be the result of higher interest rates again, and then a little bit of sticker shock, when buyers are seeing that rates are going from, back in December in the low 3s up to the high 4s. Maybe everyone's kind of holding back to see what's going to happen. Maybe just getting used to the idea of paying higher interest rates. It's tough, because it's an increase in the amount of mortgage interest that you're paying each month with your payment. You can typically write all of that money off, but we do live in our house payments. I mean, that's that number that we get at the end is the strongest deciding factor on whether or not we're going to go forward with the purchase or not. So that's where we are right now. It'll be interesting to see what we're looking at like next week and 2 weeks, especially 2 weeks from now, as far as closings and that asking price or the purchase price, how far over it goes over the asking price, just based on what we've been seeing these couple of weeks. As always, we'll keep an eye on the market for you. And if you have any questions about what's going on in your neighborhood, your municipality, whatever it happens to be, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to provide anything that we know. And feel free to like and subscribe to this video. All right, we'll see you next week.